Nestled in the quiet countryside of France, life in this secluded village moved at a gentle pace. It was the end of summer, and the villagers gathered in the square for their annual fair, a rare moment of shared joy and togetherness. Laughter and lively chatter filled the air as families strolled between stalls, children raced around, and couples danced to the folk music echoing through the village. The sun cast warm light over the cobblestone streets, creating a scene of simple beauty. Freshly baked bread and sweet cider scented the air, drawing people toward vibrant stalls decorated with ribbons and flowers. It seemed like a perfect day, a brief escape from daily worries. But something dark lingered in the air, an unease so faint that no one noticed. A shadow crept slowly over the village, a foreshadowing of the events soon to unfold. Without warning, the sky darkened. A strange, ominous cloud of flat-bodied flies, known as Hippoboscattack, appeared overhead. The buzzing started as a faint hum, but it quickly grew louder and more insistent. Confusion spread across the villagers' faces, and before anyone could react, the swarm descended. These flies, once harmless, now seemed filled with violent intent. Their bites were sharp, piercing skin and leaving burning sensations in their wake. The fair erupted into chaos as villagers screamed, shielding themselves from the relentless swarm. Families scattered, children cried, and stalls overturned in the frenzied escape. The peaceful celebration had turned into a nightmare. The villagers asked themselves, what could have provoked this terrifying fury? The swarm wasn't moving aimlessly. The flies flew in perfect synchrony, creating strange patterns and symbols in the sky above the village. It was as if they were being guided by some dark, unseen intelligence, a sinister purpose hidden in their coordinated dance. Villagers, frozen with fear, stared upward, watching as the symbols seemed to pulse and shift in the darkened sky. These were no ordinary flies. They moved with a precision and unity that defied explanation, leaving the villagers with a primal sense of dread. As night fell, a group of villagers who had managed to escape gathered in a dimly lit barn. Among them was an entomologist, a visiting scientist who seemed to know more than he initially let on. The survivors huddled together, their faces lit by a single lantern, and whispered of the terrifying attacks. The entomologist shared his discovery with a look of grim realization. These flies, they're not natural. Someone altered them. The weight of his words sank in, leaving the group silent, their minds racing with questions and fears. Who could have done this? And more importantly, why? Following the entomologist's lead, the group ventured to an abandoned laboratory on the outskirts of the village. Inside, they found evidence of disturbing experiments. Broken test tubes, scattered files, and remnants of genetic modifications littered the floor. Notes and diagrams covered the walls, describing insect experiments that seemed far beyond the boundaries of ethical science. It was a horrifying discovery. These flies had been modified, their aggression and intelligence amplified by unnatural means. Someone had transformed them into predators with a singular purpose. But who could have unleashed this terror upon them, and to what end? Back in the village, as the night grew darker, strange events unfolded. The swarm reappeared, forming intricate patterns and cryptic symbols in the sky, creating an unsettling, ritualistic display. It was as if the flies were communicating, sending a message to those below. Terrified villagers watched from their windows, gripped by a sense of foreboding as the swarm's ominous dance continued. Each movement was precise, almost as if it were following some dark, otherworldly choreography. In the shadows of the forest, the survivors stumbled upon a gathering of robed figures chanting in eerie unison. This was no ordinary gathering. These were cultists, worshipping the swarm as divine messengers. They believed the flies were harbingers of an approaching apocalypse, divine beings to be honored and feared. The survivors hid, observing the ritual in horror as the cultists raised their hands in reverence, chanting words that seemed ancient and dark. They were not only fighting a swarm, they were up against a fanatical belief that saw the flies as heralds of their grim prophecy. Desperate and exhausted, the survivors returned to the abandoned laboratory, where they discovered the source of the swarm's control, a device emitting a high-pitched frequency. This frequency held the flies in a collective trance, directing their every movement. With a surge of adrenaline, the group destroyed the device, smashing it to pieces. The swarm scattered, suddenly disoriented, their unity broken. The villagers took a collective breath of relief as the buzzing subsided, leaving a tense silence in its place. They had survived, but a question lingered. Had they truly ended the nightmare? As dawn broke over the quiet village, a new sense of peace settled in. But on the horizon, a dark cloud appeared, slowly approaching. It was a new swarm, larger and more ominous, suggesting that the horror they had faced was far from over. The nightmare had only just begun.